All right, let's dive into something that, trips up a lot of people, even folks who are pretty deep into tech. What's the real difference between a kernel and an operating system? We tend to use those words almost like they're the same thing, but they're not at all. So let's peel back the curtain and see what's actually running your world.
Look, you use an operating system every single day. Whether it's Windows, Mac OS, Android, it's the face of your computer, right? It's what you click on. But underneath all of that, there's this hidden powerhouse, the kernel. It's the invisible engine that makes everything work. And we're about to make it visible.
So first things first, what even is a kernel? To get our heads around this, we're not going to start with a bunch of tech jargon. Nah, we're going to start with something much simpler, a car engine.
And that's really the best way to think about it. The kernel is the engine. It's not the steering wheel, it's not the comfy seats, and it's definitely not the cool paint job. It's the core, the part that does all the heavy lifting under the hood, the thing that actually makes the car go.
Okay, so for the more, let's say, official definition, the kernel is the absolute central piece of an OS. Its whole job is to be the middleman. It's the ultimate translator, managing the constant chatter between your physical hardware, your CPU, your memory, and the software you're trying to run. So what does that control actually mean? Well, the kernel is basically the master traffic cop of your computer. It decides which app gets to use the CPU and for how long, so nothing hogs all the power. It doles out memory, so programs have enough room to run without stepping on each other's toes, and it talks to all your devices through drivers, so when you click your mouse, something actually happens. It's working non-stop, and you never even see it.
And these things are very real. The most famous one is probably the Linux kernel. And get this, that one kernel powers a huge chunk of the internet servers, the world's fastest supercomputers, and the Android phone in your pocket. It's everywhere. Of course, Microsoft has its own, the Windows NT kernel, and Apple uses its XNU kernel for everything from Macs to iPhones.
Okay, so we've established the kernel is the engine. Well, that kind of begs the question, right? What's the operating system? Because let's be real, an engine all by itself isn't very useful. You got to build a car around it. And that's exactly it. The OS isn't just the engine, it's the whole car. It takes that raw power from the kernel and puts it into a package you can actually use. The chassis, the wheels, the dashboard, the radio, the whole shebang. So an operating system starts with that kernel at its heart, and then it bolts on everything else. That includes the user interface, all the icons and windows you see. It includes crucial tools like your file manager and all those apps that come pre-installed like a web browser or a notepad. And these are the names you know: Windows 11, Mac OS, Ubuntu, Android, iOS. These are the complete packages, the full cars. And even though they all look and feel totally different on the outside, every single one has a kernel humming away deep inside. Right, we've got the engine, we've got the car. Now let's just park them side by side so the relationship between them is crystal clear. Let's just break it down. The kernel, that's the core. It's busy handling all the nitty-gritty, low-level stuff. You, the user, never touch it. You can't. But the OS, that's the complete system that you do interact with. The apps, the menus, everything. It's the whole experience that's built on top of that kernel foundation. Here is the perfect example that'll make this click. The Linux kernel is, well, it's just a kernel. It's an incredible piece of software, but by itself, it's not something you or I could really use. That's where an operating system like Ubuntu comes in. It takes the Linux kernel, adds a slick user interface, a bunch of apps, and turns it into a complete, ready-to-use desktop.
And just think about how your phone's OS was made. Let's take Android. They didn't start from zero. First, they took the powerful, super stable Linux kernel. Then they started layering things on top. The touch interface, all the system apps like your contacts and phone dialer, and poof, the result is the complete Android OS that millions of us use every day.
So after all of that, what's the one thing you really need to walk away with? Let's just boil it all down. Here it is, plain and simple. The kernel is the heart, the engine, doing all the critical work in the background. The operating system is the full package, the whole car that you actually get to sit in and drive. You just can't have a working car without an engine. So there you have it. But here's a little something to think about. Now that you know the difference, pick up your phone. If it's an Android, you know a Linux kernel is in there. If it's an iPhone, it's the XNU kernel. You can't see it, you can't touch it, but now you know it's there, quietly running the entire shell. Thanks for tuning in.